So if you've been following my channel, we've recently moved into a house here just a couple of months ago. Well, the problem is that when the time of year we moved into a house is not an ideal time to try to have a yard and to grow grass, but I've been trying to do it anyway. So I started out in my last video trying to revive my front yard, which was sod that was dead, and trying to revive it. Now, as you can see here, it's getting a little bit better, but it's still not great. And the reason being is just we've been having continually having 90+ degree days, full sun, almost no rain, and no matter really how much water you give, the grass is going into survival mode. You're not going to be thriving. And so me trying to grow grass seed here just isn't going to be that successful. And that's one of the biggest risks you have with trying to grow grass seed once you kind of get into the year. Doing it into the spring, you just have to hit the timing perfect, because you got to be late enough that you don't get a frost, but you don't want to get so late that you end up running into really high temperatures with little to no rain. And that's exactly what's happened here. So in this video, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you what I've done to my backyard. Now, you know, in the backyard, I ended up spraying Roundup over the whole backyard, killing off everything that was there to start from scratch. So as you can see behind me, we got our fence installed. And so this is essentially what I was waiting for to be able to actually start working on the yard. The other thing is I sprayed Roundup on the yard back here to kill everything off, and you can see that everything is pretty much dead back here. There's still a little bit of green, but all the big weeds and all that stuff, it's all just dead. So we're going to get ready to get started on the backyard. My initial plan was to rent a rear tine tiller and just till up the entire backyard, get everything loosened up there because it's very hard and compacted ground. Well, I ran into some issues. One, I don't have a truck, and I can rent one of those tillers, but I don't have a truck or a trailer. So I went over to a local hardware store to rent a truck. I rented the truck only to find out that they won't let me tow anything because they had a lock on the hitch. So that kind of ruined that plan. So now I'm going to go with my less than ideal plan, and that is I'm going to set up sprinklers all in my backyard and try to really get the backyard softened. If I can get it softened up really good, I'm going to then run my power rake that I used in the front yard and try to just disturb the soil as much as I possibly can. My hope is that I'll be able to rough up the soil enough to make a good enough seed bed to plant the new grass seed on. So this isn't really my ideal approach of what I wanted, but this is real life stuff, and so you guys will get to kind of come along this journey with me and kind of see how my yard plays out. So what I'm going to essentially do back here is set up different sprinkler zones, simulating as if I had an in-ground irrigation system. So that's why I'm going to be running a lot of these different hoses here to set up different zones, so I'm not having to continually go outside, run hoses, turn the water on, do all of that. The more you can kind of get a good system down to kind of run itself, the easier it's going to be to keep up with, especially if you're going to try to water your grass consistently throughout the summer. For me, with seeding, I have to water the grass consistently. If I don't, it's not going to turn out right. So that's why it costs me a little bit more money, because I'm buying more hoses, more sprinklers, so I'm not just moving around a sprinkler. I'm going to set up a bunch of sprinklers and kind of have my separate zones going for me to make it as automated as possible, so that way I can get the best results. So here's the setup I'm going with. I have a sprinkler right there to try to get this corner and as close as I can to the edge of the fence there. Then I have a sprinkler right there that should be doing a half circle, hopefully getting all the way to the corner. And then I have another one down here just a little bit, going to be doing the exact same thing as the one before. Then we come over here, get a sprinkler on the corner to try to get this corner over here, then a sprinkler over there on the end to try to get everything in the back. Now what you want to make sure that you're doing whenever you're setting up your sprinklers for how far apart is you want to have a little bit of overlap with them. What you don't want to do is have them so spread out apart that they just barely get to each other, because then you may end up getting gaps in your coverage. You'd rather have a little bit of overlap and be able to adjust your watering times accordingly where you have the better overlap. What you don't want to do is if you spread it too thin and aren't really getting any overlap, you could just have spots that aren't really getting watered enough. So you want to make sure that you're getting some good proper overlap with your sprinklers if you're setting up multiple of them. So now I have the hoses all set up. So I have 5 sprinklers in total. I have a 4 outlet timer, and then I have one going to the other one, and I have a 2 outlet timer. Now I don't have any preference on brand. I've never really used this. I've always had an in-ground irrigation system. So the ones I picked up, both by Orbit. One's the Orbit Beehive, which this is kind of more like using your smartphone a little bit. And so I don't think you necessarily have to, but I think it has those capabilities. So you can buy like a hub and use it over Wi-Fi, where this one is just going to be not using your smartphone. But both of them are going to take batteries, and I'll just be able to set the time, when, how often, and just get it on a regular schedule so that I'm not having to always come out here and keep watering. And so as I use these, I will let you guys know if I recommend these ones or not, or if I think you guys should look into other options. So this timer is pretty easy to set up. Essentially all it's doing is you're using the knob to determine which one you want, how long, how often. So you select how often, and then I can just twist this knob and it changes how often I want it by hours to days. So I'm gonna set this to do every, just for now, I'll just have it to do every 6 hours. So I just am trying to get the backyard wet. So I will adjust this further as I am actually watering my grass. But every 6 hours, then you hit zone, and then you just set for each zone. So zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, back to zone 1. How long? So I have it set for like 20 minutes, and see there it defaults to nothing there. So I select that and just dial the wheel up to 20. So very easy to use. This is very, very user friendly. Click zone 3, click it, twist it, set the whole thing up again. Get to 20, select zone 4, click it. And that's all you're doing for literally everything on here, just setting it up right here on this. A thing to keep in mind when you're setting these is when you're setting the start time. So for the next start time, right now I have them to run every 6 hours. And so what you want to do is offset them by the timing. So the whole reason I got this is to set it up into separate zones. And so what you don't want to do is set the time on every zone to start at the exact same time. What you'd like to do is finish one zone and start the next. So for me, I'm going to just start the next one, say noon, and then what I'm going to do for zone 2, have it run for 20 minutes, and then get to zone 2, and it's going to be 12:20. 20 minutes, the next zone is going to be 12:40. Next zone is going to be 1 o'clock. And so that way, it's letting the sprinklers get all the water, so you're not trying to just run all 4 zones at the exact same time. It's kind of defeating the purpose of what I got something like this for. So let me show you an issue that I did run into with the 4 outlet timer. See, this thing is so wide that it didn't fit underneath the hose faucet. And so my kind of workaround is I have a hose that's going into it and then hooking them up. So not really an ideal situation, but it'll have to do. Now I guess technically if I just got like a 300-foot hose, I could just connect it to that and then just walk around my house with the thing just hooked up and all the hoses hooked up, no water, and then I got this kind of like pocket stinking irrigation controller right there. So if it doesn't fit anyway, just might as well buy just a giant long hose and just be able to just have it inside with you walking around wherever you want. And man, right at the fingertips, baby, just slap that button and you can get a green lawn. All right, so today is the day where I'm going to get the grass seed planted. Now, over the last couple of days, we've gotten a lot of rain. We've had several lines of thunderstorms and that coming through. So everything back here is really soaked here in the backyard. On top of that, when it wasn't raining and stuff, I had been running kind of the sprinklers that I set up. So I got the ground real nice and soft to help give me a chance. Now, before I start running the scarifier on everything, I'm going to go through the backyard here and look for any big rocks or anything I want to just get out of the lawn before I start to do my work. All right. So if you ever want to know why your new build home has a very crappy lawn in the back, let me show you why. Take a look at that. That was in my yard. So if you think you're ever going to get nice grass by having giant boulders in your lawn, yeah, that ain't happening. So that's why it's really critical when you're planting grass seed, especially if you have a new build, check on it, man, because look at this thing. Holy smokes. Now I'm going to be on to using the scarifier. So the yard is really soft and really sloppy, and so this is going to be a muddy mess today, but I needed the ground to not just be stinking rock hard. So that's why I'm happy I got some of the rain to help soften everything up. So this is going to give me the best chance to kind of disturb everything here at the surface to help me kind of get a seed bed ready to put down that seed and fertilizer. Well, ran into the first problem. I did not realize how widespread the netting here was on the ground for when they originally planted the grass seed. Look what it did to the scarifier. Yep, just wrapped it up. So, plan A failed. This was plan B. Now it's time to move on to plan C. So really what I'm going to just do now, right, is I've killed off most of the stuff back here, right? So it looks like it's in bad shape. It failed on me with trying to get a tiller rented, and this thing here, which I knew wasn't built for the job, I attempted to do it. I didn't even get one line in and it's out. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to walk through here, kind of go by hand with a rake and just kind of rough up the ground a little bit and get it as good as possible, and then we're just going to throw her down and hope that this turns out good. What you're seeing here is real world problems that are going to happen to you guys, and so you're not always going to have that much time, money, energy, whatever you need to always have everything just go perfectly. And so this is going to kind of be a test more than anything to see really, okay, what do I really need to have everything looking like to be able to really grow grass. So the grass seed's all down. Now it's time to put fertilizer on top. Another difference I want to talk about with fertilizers, you know, so I've done multiple times, I like to put kind of a double dose down right to start. I put down a natural fertilizer like Milorganite or one of those, and then I put down a starter fertilizer. Now you got to know, with natural fertilizers, they go down at a much higher rate, so you're putting more of the actual product down per area of your lawn than what you are, say, like a starter fertilizer. They're a lot more higher numbers, more potent, and so what you want to do is you're going to dial it back. So the number you're putting on your spreader, it isn't the same depending on what fertilizer you're putting. So you got to pay attention. That's why most of the places that make fertilizer, on the back of the bag, they're going to have the number there for a Scott spreader or whichever spreader you have. Lastly, to top it all off, I'd like to finish with a nice thin layer of peat moss. You can see kind of behind me, all I'm doing with peat moss is I'm just literally spreading it out by hand. Now I do make a nice peat moss roller. I've never used one before, but they look pretty cool. Where you just fill up the stinking roller, just roll through a thing and just put you a nice even coat of peat moss. So I've always kind of done it by hand. Takes a lot longer. If you have more people, it can help you. But you can see here, I got my bag, and all I'm doing is just picking it up and I'm just spreading it and just putting a nice thin layer. You don't want to bury the seed. You don't want to kind of put too much and pile all up, so nice thin layer. The peat moss, especially if it's dry, like you want to make sure it's not wet from the bag that you get. Make sure it's dried out so it goes on real nice and thin. Last thing you do, you get all your sprinklers set up and you just begin to water the grass seed. Now you can see all through there, you can just see the nice thin layer of peat moss there, real thin. And so I got my seed, fertilizer, peat moss. Should be good to go. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time when we get out of the weeds and hopefully into a beautiful lawn.